everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you all are doing all right. Today's session we're going to talk about RE framework, which is also known as Robotic Enterprise Framework. Now, this was a topic that was requested by one of our fellow subscribers, so I want to make sure that the content reaches to them as well as to all the subscriber and also non-subscribers as well. The main goal is to make sure knowledge has been shared across the platform, our developer community. Now, let's get back to our session today. Here in this session, what we will do is that I'll cover a little bit of theory, plus I already prepared a flow or I created a project which deals with RE framework, and I'll go through individually what I have done. Also, I will run the process end to end so that you can see what is happening. Okay. Now, first and foremost, a little bit of theory. What is RE framework? RE framework is a pre-built state machine. Okay, it's a template provided by UiPath and it has a pre-built state machines in it. It is designed to build large-scale, reliable transactional automation. Okay, think of it as a skeleton project. Now that saves you from coding or writing a code on logging the messages or error handling or even retries. So instead of thinking or worrying about what's going to happen to your bot or your automation process when it crashes, or how you can handle logging scenarios of exception messages, or even stepwise logging mechanism. Um, in cases such as wherein you want to perform a or you want to have a proper error handling mechanism, right? Or how to ensure that proper error handling mechanism is done. That's where your RE framework comes into picture, where UiPath has already built a framework for you. What you have to do is that you just have to make sure your automation, the solution or a problem that you have, the automation requirement what you have to make sure that so and so components go into so and so states. Now, what and all those, I'll explain it. The architecture or the components of RE framework contains four states. Initialization, as you can see in the screen, initialization, that is the first state, and then get transaction state data, process transaction, and then end process. Initialization, this is the part or this is the state where you read the config data. Now, again, before I start explaining all these things or how it behaves or anything, let me just explain one thing and we can just directly jump into over here. To get this RE framework, what you have to do is that in the new for template is available, click on more templates and just search robotic. Let me just search RE framework. You see, Robotic Enterprise Framework. You can take this up or click on this and choose the latest version available and click on use template. The moment you do that, you will end up seeing the screen. Okay. Now we are going back to our discussion of explaining the each part of or each state machines. Okay, which or each states which we have. First is the initialization. Initialization is where you perform a setting it up. Basically, to have your automation run properly, the application or your automation should be ready, right, with all the information, such as, for example, you have an automation of reading the data from email. So, during this particular state, what you do, you read all the data and you store it or you download all the attachments that you need and everything. You have it ready so that your process transaction and get transaction run without any worries. This is one. Or if you want your application, say for example, you have an application wherein you perform some kind of a uh, search or something. Maybe I can give an example of invoice processing. So you have an automation wherein you are performing an invoice processing, and you need to read through the data which you get it from maybe in an report or something, or in anywhere, in Excel file or anything, and you have to have the application open, basically the login part of it. The login concept can be done at initialization, so that in the process transaction only the navigation will happen. So that's the whole agenda of the initialization. Now during initialization you also see that something called first run and load, read local config file. Now here they as you can see here, init all settings framework that is invoked. If you recall in my previous sessions wherein customizing the RE framework, where I have talked about, I have covered the point where we can customize the init all setting. Basically, just to give you an idea, when you create a new RE framework by with the step that I have mentioned just before this one, you end up this framework. Also, all the files, if I open this, you would see a folder structure like this. You will have an main XAML file, and you will have project JSON, test folder, framework, exception, documentation, data. Inside data, you see config file. Oh, and then input, output, uh, temp folders. All these gets created. Okay, you don't have to manually create them. Now, in the config file, you would see you having a three sheets called settings, constant, and assets. Now, setting and constant, they are, you can just provide the informations of values. So, for instance, if you have some kind of retry numbers, right? So you perform a retry on certain things. Now, how many times the interval that can be provided, and how many the retry in uh, how many times it needs to retry, that number you can provide. Also, default wait time, timeout, minimum, maximum timeout, all those information you can provide it over here, rather than having it hard coded in your project. Avoid hard coding anything in your project. Use settings and constant for it. Okay, just to give you an idea, for example, I have a timeout, right? So timeout is, I have an UI automation wherein it has to click on something, and I probably give a timeout. So 2000 is the timeout that I'm giving, and here say min timeout I have used. Now here 2000 is basically when you do a click activity. Let me just take a click activity for just to give you an idea. Not this one. Right. Now, in here, as you can see here, what timeout, right? So usually what happens, this is the timeout that happens. It's a basically in seconds, and it is a format of double, right? So similar way, if I just make it as, instead of 2000, it's, since it is double, I'll keep it as 20. Now it's a 20 seconds. Okay. Now what I have to do, all I have to do is that this one, I'll copy this one, and then config file I have, right? Config of, what's happening? Instead of hard coding the number over here, what I'm gonna do, delete everything, config of the variable, or sorry, the name mentioned in the settings part. I'm just copying and I'm just pasting over here, and then toString. That's it. Now, once you're done with that, you can just click on save. Now, what happens is that this avoids a hard code aspect of it. Now, I do see that error because it's a double, right? So we just need to convert into double. That's it. The error vanished. You see? So that's how you utilize the config data. Now, in the settings, init all settings, it's already been read. The settings and constant is already been read, and it has been passed to out config, right? Also, you see that here we have assets. This is also get read by init all setting itself, and it is getting assigned to config itself. So again, to invoke anything in assets also, Same concept you need to provide the, for instance, if I want to have this in here, I can give, copy and paste the same thing, but the asset name or the asset column that you see, this should not be the number. It should be some name like minimum, uh, min time or something like this. I have mentioned, right? So this one should be available in your orchestrator. So if you don't have it, you just have to go and you have to create the new asset, provide the information. It's you can give it as, what is it? Since we don't have double, you can just keep it as text itself. Mention some 20 minutes or 20 something like this. Save it, and then it gets automatically added to here, right? When your init all setting performs the read, right? So this is the read of your asset, sorry, your settings and constant. This is the read of your assets. Now here it reads the information and it will assign back to your config data. When you access this here, you have to make sure, or you are already doing it, you just have to make sure that you provide the basically convert the string into double. This is just one example I'm providing. So how to utilize the config. So basically config is nothing but it's a dictionary of string and object. Just to show you in the output, bear with me, some slowness with my laptop today after performing some updates. That's okay. See, string and object. So string is nothing but in here, it's always the name. Object is nothing but which comes column B. It can be value or it can be asset value as well. Okay. Now I'll just delete this off because I don't need them. It doesn't matter if I keep it here or not. Uh, for a best practice aspect of it, I do suggest that only keep the relevant information that is needed for your automation and delete the things that is not needed. Whatever it is already available from which you get it from UiPath, you can keep them as is in case in future they may come handy. So as of now, you can only make sure that whatever you customize it, right? So customized information, uh, keep the only information that is necessary for your automation. Moving on, here I hope this is you're able to understand how the init all setting works. Now moving on to the next is that we have all these informations like orchestrator queue name. In case you orchestrator queue name is not here, you can also you get the arguments over here. So these arguments you can pass as well, so that your automation by default that gets fetched up. Same thing, this is orchestrator folder name, queue folder name, and then here maximum consecutive system exception. Say for instance, this is I think earlier in, if you have been part of RE framework from the beginning, you won't see this as well as the above one. Uh, this one. Why? Because during that time we did not had these things, but this has been added recently. Recently, in the sense, it's not quite some time. It's been quite some time, but it is very useful part of it. Say, for instance, your automation, it's a queue-based automation and or a transaction-based automation. Now it locks into, consider same concept of invoice processing. Now what is going to happen at that at this particular point is that sometimes since it's a third party application, there is a lot of scope of having the third party application go into a say downtime. Now during that time, your automation may feel that impact, and all the transaction may go into system exception. Now imagine dealing with thousands of invoices, and each invoice is going into system exception, meaning all of them, you would basically, that particular time, the entire end-to-end time gets consumed, even though you know that the automation by the end of the execution, you would have to again rerun or do some further investigation or whatever it is. That's why this comes in handy because you can provide a maximum consecutive exception. Consecutive exception in the sense, now you have five in transaction. Now out of five transaction back to back, all three transactions failed. Now if you give maximum consecutive system exception as some value, say 4, then during fourth also if it fails, it throws this exception and it stops the automation. I hope this is clear for you. Now moving into init. So this is where the workflow where you have to code your automations. The one that I talked about, like reading the input files or having your automation logs into so and so platform, right? So that is what you do here. Also here, as you could see, I have done the same approach. I used for a for this use case or for this particular session, I just did a simple automation wherein I am reading this data which is available in rpasample.com opportunity. 18 records are available, right? I'm reading this data and I am basically extract data table, same I'm doing, and I'm just printing how many records that I've extracted. And then each record, I'm adding it to a queue. So I'm not doing a dispatcher and performer. Maybe in next upcoming session, I'll convert this entire automation into dispatcher and performer, and I'll explain how they behave. But as of now, dispatcher and performer are combined together one in RE framework itself. So the dispatcher concept comes in the initialization and performer concept comes in the process step. Now here, this is the queue item I have already created, which is this is my queue item, sales data queue. As you can see, I don't have any data as of now. Now, what happens? All the data gets added. What I'm doing or I'm adding further some more informations like key and quantity. Now, key in account name. I'm passing an account name and quantity value as well. Now this is my initialization. I'll show you how they look like basically. So when you have a transaction over here, uh, since it doesn't have anything, I couldn't show you or I'm not able to show you, but I'll show you it once we run the automation. So this is the init all setting concept, or this is how init all setting or init all application should be used. Make sure you perform the initialization in the init all setting. This is the usage of the automation. Although they mention open applications, right? Make sure concept related to setting up is done here. Now moving into get transaction. Now if your transaction based automation, you can go you don't have to make much configuration or you don't have to make any configuration to this XAML or this stage at all. Why? Because it's already done for you, everything. It is getting the transaction item. The only thing that you need to do is that to not in project but in config file. Make sure your queue name is provided here in the config file. If or either here or either in the main of queue. Oh, sorry about this. Main input argument here. You need to either here or here. You need to provide the information of queue name. As of now, I provided sales queue data is my name, the queue name. Okay. Apart from this, you don't have to do anything. So the agenda of this or the task of this get transaction is that every time it fetches one transaction item from the orchestrator. It's always first in, first out. Okay, that remember the concept of it. Now, once that is done, the next concept comes into play is the process. This is the heart of your automation. Basically, you won't see any of this. You only see this and this comment. The rest is where you need to provide the automation. So think about in a way you have logged into your automation. Now for each invoices, you have to perform a steps like navigate to so and so screen, perform a submission of an invoice, and then make sure once you perform the submission, it always has to go back to that same point, that to the point where when again this process transaction comes into play. For instance, home page. As soon as you logged in the init all settings, init all application, The first and foremost page that you see is the home page, right? Now here you will have a home page here in the first activity. Next, you perform all your processing steps. The last step should always be again go back to home page. Now, after doing that, what happens when next transaction happens, next invoice gets processed, it again goes back and looks for a home page and then do all the necessary steps. That way, you make sure that each invoices follow same concept. Now here, this is a big help, or this is a big uh, approach of having to write only one time of a code and utilize that for multiple invoices, right? Now, as you can see in the screen right now, I already processed. This is nothing to do with front end. What I have done is that it's simple. I have taken out, oh, sorry, controls. What I have done is very simple. I check the quantity that I have uploaded, right? If that quantity is less than 30, then it's a successful, I'm considering. Otherwise, I'm throwing a business exception. Now, here you see, I'm not handling anything. I'm just actually throwing an error message over here as a business exception. But RE framework handles this in a very uh, good way. I'll show you how. They have this something called transaction states, and all these states basically, if you see, all these states are inside try and catch block. Now, when this process fails, it can be of system exception, it can be of business exception. It goes into the catch blocks of respective catch block, either business exception or a system exception. As you can see here, catch block of business exception, catch back of system exception. And they have assigned a variable of this for exceptions. If it is a business exception variable get assigned. If it is system exception variable gets assigned. Now they have also added the transaction status. If your automation is queue based, this is where your queue, queue items inside this sales queue, there are queue items, right? So those either get successful or business or a system exception. If it is successful, what it does, it sets this transaction states into success. Uh, States as success. As you can see here, success. If your automation is business or a system exception, it states sets the status as failed with reason as business exception message, and here error type as business. If you don't give it, it takes as a application exception. So make sure it's been selected. Now you don't have to do anything over here as well, just for your reference. Everything, all these things are already provided by your RE framework. So no changes needs to be done for this unless your automation needs some additional action or additional things to be done. But as per my knowledge, as per my experience with RE framework that we have done so far, you don't have to make any changes to this XAML file at all at any cost of time, right? Now, here somewhere, yeah, set transaction status. Now, in here, as you can see, application error and reason, we have pasted with the error messages or the automation that they have already provided. Now, this way, each transaction gets assigned with the system exception. It also does one more thing is that, increments some variables. Now, consecutive system exception variable, its count get increased if at all, if there is any system exception. Retries, it gets increased. This one transaction number, this one also get increased. Now you see here, all these numbers, these two numbers are zero and this is being incremented. Why? Because these are done for success and business exception. If it is success or a business exception, you should not increase the system exception, consecutive system exception, right? Because it is not that. It is basically, it either success or it failed due to business rules. For system exception, it actually increases the counter. Here, retry number has been increased. Also, the consecutive number is also being increased. Now, With this, what happens is that as the number goes up, based on the number, you can provide it over here, the consecutive system exception number here. You can provide 4, you can provide 5. So the moment it reaches 4, it checks again. If it is failing, then it throws a business or it comes out of, it stops the flow and it comes out of the automation. Now, moving on, that's where the process state uses. It has three transactions. Either one is success in the sense, in case of it completes the process run end to end. I mean end to end in the sense, yeah, the entire the flow process XAML flow. If it is success, there is no issue. It goes into, again, it fetches next queue item. It goes into get transaction data. It fetches next queue item. Again, if it is business exception, it does the same thing. But if it is a system exception, it goes into init and it performs the initialization part of it. And then again, it goes back to get transaction and performs it. Now, once your entire transaction gets completed, again, it goes here, right? It checks whether do we have any transaction. If there is no transaction, this no transaction data gets processed and then comes the end state. Now, during the end state, it's basically, as name indicates, it's a closure or closing your application in a way that it ensure that, I mean, you can just add your logic. You don't have any flow here. Here, where you clean up the environment, like closing the browser, logging out from so and so application, so and the rest of the information, maybe sending final consolidated informations to business. All those steps you can mention it over here. Again, they already have a catch block here with the system exception. If any issue happens during closure, it gets converted. It treats as a system exception and then terminate workflow. So in all the states that you see, right, everywhere a try catch has been handled and a consecutive transition state has been provided. What exactly should happen if during initialization there is any issue happens? It treats as a system exception and it goes into end state. If it is success, it obviously it goes into transaction state. Now in get transaction, again, if it fails during the data extraction, it basically, what happens is that, let me open get transaction. Where is that? Is it? You see here, this is a under this comes in a try catch, right? And the get transaction is under try catch. Now, what happens if say scenario I talked about in the customization as well, right? Say scenario wherein your orchestrate when you're trying to connect to orchestrate. Basically, this is nothing but it's a communication between orchestrator and your UiPath. Now your UiPath unable to extract or unable to make a call to orchestrator, and it may reaches to a timeout exceed error message. It has been catched here, and in the catch, it has been rethrown as an error. And when it throws the error back, it goes back to initialization, and then your entire process would the your this gets activated, the error catch block gets activated, transaction number gets added into 0, and then when or nothing, and then when transaction is nothing, which is basically no data is there, that's then it directly jumps into an end state, right? So all if imagine what even all the exception that one automation should be handled, all those exceptions, error logging, error handling mechanism, everything is being handled in here. Only thing that you need to do is that you need to place your logics in a way that it follows these or it binds to these rules that they have created. So I hope this was a useful session for you to understand how the RE framework behaves. Now I'll just run the automation and let's see the result. Automation has been executed. Read range UI. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to close this file. Let's run it again. You see, the execution has completed. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just do it from here. Run flow. I just ran it from init settings, right? That's why it only ran that workflow. Let us see what is happening. You see, everything is it's doing. Already started executing, and it's been running for all the transactions. Now the run has completed. Let's go back to our orchestrator and see what it is doing. You see, it is added status as failed, success. Now, I said in earlier that there are two things that I've added to orchestrator, right? Account name, quantity. So this is what I was talking about, specific data. Now I have added these, and you can add it through in your add queue. You can just add it from your uh, item information. You can add these; those gets reflected over there. So the logic was simple that I gave. If the quantity is less than 30, then quantity it marks as quantity is available, and if it is more, then it throws a error. Considered as a business exception. So that's what it is doing. If you see here, I'll scroll to the right, and exception C, it is a business exception. And if I scroll down as well, all of these are considered as a business exception. There is no system exceptions at all. So that's the uh, run of RE framework. To sum up, RE framework is your best friend for enterprise level automation. In the upcoming video, I'll walk you through on converting this into a dispatcher and performer. Now, if you found this session is useful, hit that button, subscribe, and let me know in the comment which part of RE framework you would like to deep dive in.